What is up guys, Greedy Knight here with the Charge Blade dashboard that I posted on the channel a few days ago. I'll be going over the math for Charge Blade and the effectiveness of Element File over Impact File in the Monster Hunter metagame. Let's get into it. So here's the actual dashboard and I'll just go through everything and how to use it. Basically this is where the results are, and then these are the dials you use to change the results. This is the monster lineup, so click on a monster and then you get to see its various hit zones. One thing I can add eventually is including like the hit zone value and then the element hit zone value, but I didn't want to bog down the view with a bunch of information that is in the spreadsheets, so it depends on what I feel like doing. Here is the update section. Basically this toggles your augments and then also your various skill values. Like obviously Berserk will do a lot more damage than base, but it's nice to know that you do like 600 more damage after 6 updates worth of improvements. So I'm going to start with the highest value for both the double chop and the file. So for the double chop, the highest value is with the Berserk set, using it against Great Baggy and or the ice equivalent for Great Groggy. So they're just about the same value, it's off by 30 points. Basically, this is the hardest you'll hit with the weapon, but you're most likely going to be hovering around 2000 for element file, and then for impact file, it's pretty low, just shooting past 1500. So that's the main difference between impact file and element file. It's just going to be higher in general, and then how high will depend on how weak that monster is to a specific element. Like Baroth, it'll have really highs and lows, it'll cascade like this. Chameleos would be a good pick. The main thing is that it has the same overall pattern, but it's all concentrated on the head, which is impossible to hit, so you're most likely going to be down here. And then for super spam, we're going to look at the highest overall damage, so we're going to take off ice because Chameleos is immune here, but I'm going to take on water for this. So I showed this during the actual Baroth hunt, but basically your highest damage will be on the Baroth's head. It has a 40 hit zone, and when it's under mud mode it's gonna be around 1400, and then when it's under unarmored mode it's gonna be 1200, and then I'm just gonna toggle it ever so slightly, so it's gonna be higher with the lifesteal set here, pretty much just because you have the full power blood awakening versus the 2 levels. You'll be relying primarily on the fire once you wear off the mud armor, and then since it'll be in an arena typically, it will just stay in that fire mode basically. The rest of the hit zones will be 800, which is respectable already, and then you have the one jackpot spot in Slam in the Head. Thing I want to go over aside from the highest damage is how effective element file is against impact file, which I did briefly touch just a few moments ago. But for super spam, this is what it ends up looking like. So you're down here at just shy of 186, 196 with Berserk. That's versus 1200. So you're not doing very well with impact file, and then this is before all of the Spearbird buffs, the meal buffs, all of that. You're just only calculating base impact file damage. But it naturally goes over 200 with all of those accounted for, but so does the damage of element builds. Impact file needs a buff. This is about the same level as For You damage, but it's doing slightly worse because I believe one SAED file did like 230, and then this is like barely 200. So it honestly needs a rework in the next game. Elements, as it stands, is really overtuned, but even looking at base game, you're doing 600 before all of the crazy skills, and then impact files at 157, so you're still missing like, or 350 damage. In my opinion, even if you doubled the motion value, you would be probably about here, like at the 400 mark, and then that would force impact file builds to be run at, what is it, 15 or higher, something like that. But thanks to all the buffs provided by element file, even with a doubling of the SAD file for impact file, it's not going to do anything. Element will still be better here. So I think they need to rework how impact file is calculated specifically, and then leave element alone because it's powerful and good, so it creates a dichotomy that's a lot closer. Here's some more differences between element file and impact file. So we got Chaotic Gore, Base Gore, Crimson Valstrax, and Primal Malzeno. Let's remove none to make it simpler as well, and then let me change it to Rathian. So here we could clearly see that Crimson Glow does the most on specifically the Berserk set and the Lifesteal set, but it's a pretty close race. It's just shy of 100 points in damage, so that's enough of a damage difference to justify using Primal Malzeno pending slot availability. So you want to use Primal Malzeno whenever you need a set that needs the extra slots. 3 level 4 slots is really good, so that can feasibly bring Primal Malzeno up to Crimson Valstrax damage output by investing in stuff like element exploits, more levels of chain crit, you name it. On the flip side, we see that Chaotic Gore is getting outpaced by Chaotic by about 30 points, so you can run either, but Chaotic Gore gives you the luxury to cut weakness exploit from the set because you have so much affinity on the set anyways, so you get 80 affinity after you overcome the virus, so that's one thing to keep in mind. That allows you to run Scorned Magnamalo without any downsides. You just have full power crits, and then you have 3 level 2 slots that you could spend on anything else basically. But here we could see that 2600 versus 1600, it's about a 1000 gap difference for both builds. We'll go to some arbitrary monster I like bullying. Let's go to Great Azuchi. So here, same thing, Nara is the only contestant we care about because it has purple sharpness, it has 75 elements, so any other weapon like Zinogre or Thunder can't really compete because your element damage is just insane here. And then as for Astalos versus Tobikadachi, we can see that Tobikadachi is slightly weaker than Astalos, but Astalos only has that sliver of purple, so you do need the handicraft investment. Otherwise, Astalos will drop down below Tobi and it'll be game set match. And you do have the 2-1-1 slots versus the 1 slot on Astalos, so if you want more set customizability, Tobikadachi is an acceptable candidate here, just so that you could get more bang for your buck. Similarly, Amatsu and Mitsutsume, as calculated, even with the life steal set, they're basically equal. It does not really matter what you run as long as you run one of these. I will note that I calculated Amatsu assuming you ran Deora's Soul on the set, so that means you have the extra 15, but without it, Amatsu loses to Mitsutsume due to less consistent crits here. And then Vake is just the king of water because its only competition is Giratotis. We know Vake does the most, we're just looking at the highest value for comparison. So it's about 2500 for Spinning Axe, and then for Super Spam it's 890 damage for 1 file, so times that by 5. That'll be around 4400, 4500 give or take. The main difference is that there's a decent spread here, so you can feasibly hit multiple spots, but they'll all come out with good damage once Flaming Espinas becomes enraged. So, let's just say you hit for an average of 3,500 for one super versus 2,500 for just the one double chop. 2 double chops will outpace super spam here. This is a pretty consistent pattern. So here it'll be 1,200, but you're most likely hitting this. So this would be about the average, like 900, 4,500 as an average versus 2,500, 4,500. That's less than 2 double chop. The fact that you have more uptime with spinning axe in this particular matchup makes it a lot easier. You're most likely going to be hitting the head, so that's closer to 1,800, so that takes 3 double chops versus your 1 super. But considering that Kuliaku is pretty mobile, you'll be hard pressed to say that you can consistently hit its body in the way that you want to. So generally, spinning axe will be better for most matchups. The only matchups that warrants super spam are monsters like Nargacuga, where your damage is like okay, it's like 2,300 here on the head, but if you're not hitting the head, your damage is somewhat subpar. Whereas just pure elements, your spread is better for the entire body, so you're most likely going to be hitting like 1,000, and then Nargacuga's fast enough to proc your counter peaks enough to match spinning axe's uptime. So here, you just focus the cut wing, you deal your 5,000. You could land all 5 of your files on the cut wing consistently, and then that lets you outpace spinning axe pretty well. But monsters like Magnamalo, so here you see that its highest damage is 700. Even if you hit specifically that hind leg hit zone, that'll be 3,500 damage at max. Versus 1,700, 2 chops will match your 1 super. Basically, spinning axe is the consistent pick. Super spam is only used in extreme cases, which is somewhat sad. Originally, I thought that it was like 50-50, but looking at the special investigations where every monster is octane, a lot more matchups become spinning axe favorable just because of ready stance and wirebug whisperer shenanigans. Certain matchups just become unbearable the faster monsters get, so spinning axe tends to win out here. That's all I got for this one. Comment down below your thoughts on the video. I wanted to do this video more freeform, so it doesn't sound as scripted as my other videos. Hopefully I could do more of these videos in this type of format, just so that I could get more comfortable talking while showing you guys all of the things I want to talk about without cutting out too much or too little. Happy hunting, Greedy Knight, signing out.